Afternoon, Enda. How are you today?
Afternoon, Peter. I'm great.
Good man. So, Enda, tell me a little about yourself and what you do in the organization you're part of.
Brilliant. Listen, Peter, thanks for having me. My name's Enda Young, and I'm the Managing Director of Mediation Northern Ireland. I kind of joke with people. I'm a recovering mechanical engineer. That was my initial degree, but I got involved in cross community work when I was a teenager. And one day, when I was on a program with the Spirit of Enniskillen, somebody came in and did a one-day training program on mediation. And I was like, what is that? And how do I do that for the rest of my life? So I went back to university, got a degree in culture and identity, and basically got trained up as a mediator. So I've now, I guess, been involved in mediation, negotiation, conflict resolution in one shape, form, or other for over 20 years now. As the Managing Director of Mediation in Northern Ireland, I'm just in post. This is my fourth week. But they were the organisation that trained.
Congratulations. You're doing a great job so far. Congratulations.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you. Thank you. They were the organisation that taught me mediation. I guess 20 years ago. So that they changed the direction of my life. So my role is to help them regrow and rejuvenate the organisation. We're 31 years old. We're based in University Street, and really what we do is offer negotiation, mediation training, in terms of you if you want to become a mediator, but also mediation services. So if you have people in your organisation who have fallen out, for example, and we do the whole gambit from community mediation, for example, working on the interfaces and that more peace mediation, right the way through to workplace mediation when senior members of your team have fallen out and there's issues within that structure. So yeah, that's our role, is helping people get better at conflict.
And what sort of people, and rather than ideal customer, I mean, what sort of people are ideal for you to be able to help?
People who are stuck. If you have, let's say, if you're working, let's take the more community-based people, organizations or structures where people have had fractured relationships. And our role isn't to solve their problem. The role of as a mediator is to facilitate them finding their own solutions. So there's a lot of parallels with coaching, right? In the workplace, it's the same thing. Part of what we look as mediators is the timing. Sometimes it's the right process at the wrong time. So maybe there's not enough hurt in the system. Maybe things are too far down the line. Maybe that relationship is now too fractured. Maybe it's a formal grievance, for example. So what we're looking for is people who are looking to restore that relationship, but just don't know how.
And are there any the pandemic? How did the pandemic affect the world of mediation? And has there been anything
Great question.
from
Yeah.
that will remain ongoing despite the pandemic being so relatively over now?
Yeah, well, I mean, with most sectors, the growth in online mediation was huge. I mean, online mediation existed before the pandemic in the form of online dispute resolution, or ODR. But what we've seen is some mediators, some clients' hesitancy to talk about the more deep emotional stuff in the online world. I think with people being forced to be in on Zoom or whatever platform has made people realize actually you can mediate, and you can mediate really well online, even when we're dealing with the really emotive, difficult stuff. I think that hesitancy there to deal with the lens when things are emotional, I think that's been broken down, and I think that people realise that this is an effective mechanism, as well as environmental and cost effective. Will there still be times when people want to be face to face? Absolutely. Hybrid models of mediation exist for that purpose. But yeah, I mean, I actually am a huge advocate for online mediation. As with all of these things, it's a tool, and it's here to stay.
And what would you say has been your biggest learning? Maybe not in the last 4 weeks, but the biggest learning since being like either a business owner or in your career through mediation?
That dialogue is a useful mechanism to create change. That even when things are the most difficult, whether that's in a macro context of this part of the world, when things have fractured within companies, within communities, actually we can find a way through those things. And I've worked all around the world. I've worked in all the different parts of this part of the world as well. And what I've come to realize, people are people, hurt is hurt, harm is harm. The money might change, the cultural nuances might change, but the fundamental belief that we have as individuals, and we want to live our life in a way that's doesn't have pain, for example, it's the same. And that's what I've learned, whether I'm coaching someone who's working on a multi-billion-dollar contract, or if I'm working with somebody in North or West or East Belfast or South Belfast, it's the same stuff.
Who would be the first person that comes into your mind when I say the word success to you?
I think about a colleague from Harvard University called Daniel Shapiro. I was lucky enough to be in Harvard recently, and one of those things, be careful never to meet your heroes, but here's an individual who has written some of the most useful books in the world on how to, for example, use emotions in negotiations. Super useful. So his work has been useful for people all around the world. You watch the guy present live, and he holds a room of 300 people and has every word. And then when you go out there for a cup of coffee with him, he's a nice guy. So for me, I really like that. People who practice what they preach, who are the same behind closed doors. And there's an individual who I believe who's made a real genuine impact on the world.
Interesting. And what would you say, what gives you the most inspiration today? And what inspires you the most?
I guess people, how surprising people can be, particularly in the world of mediation. I'm always still years later surprised. I mean, one of the nice things about mediation is the creativity of the process. And fundamentally, you should be able to facilitate a process that people are able to find their own solutions. And those things, those moments when people are able to find their own solutions, even to my ears, sometimes I go, really? And actually, I would never have thought of it. But I'm supposed to think about it. It's their problem, therefore it's their solution. So, and I've been inspired even recently in a mediation where when, CEO turned around to someone and said, through this process, have you felt listened to? And the person turned around and goes, you know what? I really, really have. And those moments in processes such as mediation, I think surprise me, and I think are just great,
And if it were possible, Enda, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
That it's okay to be multiple things at the same time. I think our education system makes it say you have to be an engineer. You're locked into that for life. And I struggled with that when I was younger, going, can I make this big life decision to shift and stuff, with support of my family at the time? And actually, you can be multiple things, not just within your lifetime, but multiple things at the same time. You can, and that goes for this work as well. You can work in the community and voluntary sector, and you can still work with big business. And I think my thing is, how do people make good money? By doing good, right? They don't necessarily need to be mutually exclusive things.
And if somebody wanted to get in touch with the charity or get involved or reach out, what would be the best way for them to go about that, Enda?
The first thing to do is obviously the website, mediationni.org. Drop me an email at enda@mediationni.org, or LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn, so drop us a line at LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to have a chat, and particularly if you're having difficulties.
Enda Young, thank you very much for your time. It's been great to hear about, and congratulations again on your new appointment, and the best of luck. But it's been really great hearing about your journey and hearing about Mediation NI. So listen, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Peter. Super. Thanks very much for having me, Peter. Appreciate it.